Marilyn, could you state your name and your birth date and what city you were born in, please?
My name's Marilyn Ann Couch. I was born in Houston, Texas, September the 10th, 1946.
Wow. Can you share with me what family of origin, the siblings, or how many people you had living there when you were born?
I had three sisters and mother and dad. My daddy was a welder for the Houston Light and Power Company. Mother was a homemaker. And
Okay, stop. Let's start over because there was a lot of wiggling going on, and now I've put that painting in right there.
okay,
Okay. Marilyn, can you share with me when you were born?
I was born in Houston, Texas, September the 10th, 1946.
And where do you fall in your family, and how many siblings, and are your parents, were they together, etc.?
I was the middle child. My older sister was Carol. She was 5 years older than me. And my little sister is Sharon. She is 2 years younger than me. Mom and Daddy were together forever until they both died. And Daddy was a welder at Houston Light and Power Company.
Wonderful. And what is your earliest childhood memory?
My most uh, interesting about my childhood was we lived next door to my grandmother and my great grandmother. One lived on one side of us and the other one lived on the other side of us. And my great grandmother was from Czechoslovakia, the old country she called it. And she would take us on an adventure at her house where she'd sit us in her rocking chair, my little sister on one side, I was on the other side in the rocking chair, and she would tell us a story about the old country. And as we rocked, she would take us back to the old country and tell us about her life there.
Okay, wait just one moment, please. That's so interesting. And can you tell me a little bit about any story you remember?
My grandmother was married about 4 times, and she lived in Louisiana as a young woman, and she told us about the stories of when she was married to the oil well worker, and they lived in a tent when the hurricane came, and uh, the tent blew away, and she was scrambling to find my mother because my mother was a little baby, and so she finally found her in all of the debris of the hurricane, and that was the most exciting thing as little kids to hear about.
How interesting. So you that really sparked your imagination.
Oh yes, the stories that they both told were a lot of fun, and we didn't have a lot of toys to play with, so we made up our own games and our own imaginary friends.
And let's dive in to the imaginary friends. Um, your imaginary friends, did y'all invite them to play with you?
Yes, what my great grandmother Vichita was a wise woman. She was a healer, and practiced with herbs. I'm not sure of what kind of herbs. I have a suspicion. Um, but she would tell us that the fairies would come in the twilight and in the early morning dawn, and that she would point them out to us, and we would see the fairies, and we would play with them. So they were maybe not so imaginary, but they were our friends, and we learned about nature that way and about plants and helpful remedies, the old ways.
Uh-huh. Did you go walking outside with her to look at plants?
Yes, she had a garden, and I was fascinated by her sickle because when she would harvest her plants, she had this sickle that looked really deadly if you did it the wrong way. But she was a master at it, and she allowed us to talk to the plants and to encourage them to grow.
Oh, that's so good. And um, because I learned from a scientist, Dr. Emoto, who was a water scientist and died about 4 years ago, that plants that are spoken to do much better than the plants that are not spoken to. And has any of that carried into your life at all?
Oh, of course, of course. I uh, I still enjoy plants, and I enjoy the the unseen elements that are around, that are in the earth and around the earth. So when I go to a new location, I always invite them to come out and play. Still,
Wow. And do you ever dream about them?
dream about the plants.
No, dream about the fairies.
Oh yeah, they well. Actually, I became a Tibetan Buddhist, and in the Buddhist tradition, they have many different entities that are not human, and we invite them to come. And my favorite thing is to cook with the Dakinis. I'll bake, and I invite them to come, and people tell me that the muffins and the bakery that I do, the cookies, that they taste pretty yummy, and I've always figured that it's with the partnership with the Dakinis.
Do you think your first encounter with Dakinis was through your grandmother? She was just calling them something else?
Yes, and when I've lived and I've been blessed to live in many different places. When I lived in Hawaii, the with a Tibetan Lama, we would we would talk to the different elementals and welcome them. And so yeah, my entire life, that's something that I've carried on.
Yes, and as I have spent time roaming around in your energy field, I have seen a lot of little creatures coming out of your paintings. When did you start painting?
Actually, that's a rather new situation. When I painted before, my experience was as a graphic artist with the military. So all of my paintings had to be very realistic, and there was a lot of discipline and not a lot of imagination. And so when I started again after 30 years of a hiatus from painting, I used my intuition along with the idea that I had entities that wanted to come out and show themselves in my paintings. So I never started out with an idea for the painting. The painting told me what it wanted to be, and that's,
You could just feel it. Do you think that when the painting tells you what it wants you to paint, that is it because you're totally connected to the source that lives between you and the canvas, or is it inside your head and it envelops you and all of a sudden you're at one with what you're doing?
I like to say I step into my paintings, that
You step
I
into
become
them.
part of the painting, and I'm looking out from the canvas. And many, many times I won't even see the entity until I'm finished, and sometimes people will show me that they see something that I'm not even seeing myself.
Yes, just for instance, this painting that I'm looking at,
Turtle Island.
well, the man with the glasses, his body is stretched out and pulled down, and it's really interesting because he could be part alien, and then I think I see a lot of little creatures that are alien-like, but then of course I see a a broken Buddha's head up at the top, and then it looks like a little baby with glasses on that's an old man but has a baby's body, and maybe there's a little mirror with a lot of dust on it, and the man in the mirror is the same as the baby, even with the face. It's really interesting.
That I named that Turtle Island, and I didn't know that there really was a Turtle Island when I named it Turtle Island.
I understand.
Until I saw a documentary about the American Indian nation protesting the strip mining of Turtle Island, which was a sacred burial place for their things. And so I was surprised that I did that painting before I knew about there was a real Turtle Island.
Well, do you believe that your soul could have known that?
The soul, what?
Could have known there was a Turtle Island, like you're connected to all that is and
Oh,
all
I'm
that
sure.
has been.
I'm sure. The idea is that when we realize that we're not just our body and not just our mind as a separate entity, that we're a part of everything, and I like to say the edges disappear and everything becomes very fluid and it becomes energy, and so of course you're affected by that energy that you're around.
Yes, the consciousness of the world is all around us and in between us, and the cosmos is there. Do you believe in aliens?
Oh, of course, yes, I do.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, and actually, actually, I've been curious that they say that families have a tradition that they're followed by the aliens, and
Who says that?
yeah, and I really believe that that's true of my family. My dad was part Cherokee, and American Indians have a very long history of affiliation
Excuse
with
me, I'm
aliens.
getting this book. Okay, now go ahead. There, that's great. Okay, so your dad is a Cherokee, and he has a long history. Go ahead.
Of that the American Indian and Cherokees have a long history of relationship with aliens.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they would say that the children were sky children, and that sometimes when they turned before they became puberty, that they were taken away and disappeared.
Wow.
And they always thought that they went back to their alien roots.
Culture. Yeah. And did he talk to you about this?
Well, my dad was his family was in Oklahoma, and they were connected to the Trail of Tears, and so he was a very gentle person, kind of a John Wayne, but very gentle. And he read when he was probably in his 40s, Chariot of the Gods, and
Wow.
he shared that with us when we were probably pre-teenagers, and he did believe in aliens. And one of the things that he pointed out is that in the book, the Egyptians had an electric battery, and my dad was an electrician. He was a welder, but he was also an electrician, and he said that is a battery, and that was seen in one of the pyramids on the walls of the hieroglyphics. So he knew that they had technology that we're not aware of. He was very curious about it.
It's like all the ancient things that they didn't have tools to make, such as the pyramids or the great wonders of the world. You know, greater sources that know how to move things, build those things, and there's a lot of beautiful hieroglyphics on that. And your paintings are very, very similar to the hieroglyphics.
Well, actually, sometimes my paintings have a series of characters that I have no clue of what they are, but they're like writing and like hieroglyphics, but I don't know what they mean.
And it's always so clear to you when you're connecting with painting the same character over and over. Yes. And what is your most memorable moment in high school?
Oh, in high school. I was a geek in high school. I was the head of my drill squad. I was La Matadora, and in the honor society, and very naive, a true, true geek. And the only outrageous thing that I did is I had two girlfriends that were in drill squad with me, and they had one of them, her dad had a supreme beautiful white Cadillac sedan, and if we polished it and got it all cleaned up, then we could take it out for Saturday night. And we would cruise downtown Houston and go to the Princess Drive-In, where you would park next to a car filled with guys, and we pretended that we were college students, and we were probably junior in high school, and made up all of these wonderful stories, and that sometimes we were from another country and talked gibberish and thought we were just so cool.
But you never really got too close to these people to see them the next time y'all took the Cadillac out, huh?
Oh, well, actually, I did. I had a boyfriend that had a Corvette, and I met him through, for giving your telephone number. And we corresponded on the phone for probably 6 months before I agreed to go out with him. He was probably 6 or 7 years older than I was.
Wow,
So,
in high school, that's a lot.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, he was my prom date. Yeah.
Oh. And then you just kind of let go of that.
Yeah, I did. I did. I went to college, and at that time he was into racing cars, and so he came up several times, and I was part of his pit crew on the car races. But I fell in love with a songwriter right after I graduated from college, and the first year of teaching art at high school, and got pregnant. So that was a big change in my life.
Yes, that is a big change when you have a child.
Yeah, it was.
All of a sudden, there's somebody who's hungry.
I think I was probably 22 at the time, and he wasn't interested in being involved, and so it was a new experience.
Oh, absolutely. And did you stay in touch with him?
Yeah, through the years I did. Yeah.
So he knew all about his child, his daughter.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, he did. Um, uh, she met him several times. Actually, when she met him, he was playing a gig in Austin at the University of Texas, and I was going to a retreat, a Buddhist retreat in Austin for the weekend, and I didn't realize that he was in town until we got to Austin and were reading the newspaper, and she decided that she wanted to meet her father. She was now she was a teenager, probably 15 or 16, and she had not seen him since she was a baby. So I meditated all day, knowing that she was going to go see him at this at the UT little cafe, and where he was playing. He was doing a concert there, and I had my boyfriend at the time, and I went there. Well, he took her to the concert while I was in the meditation, and I didn't know what was going on and real nervous about it. And then at the end, I got a taxi and met them at the little cafe, and walked up to him and told him that his daughter was there and she wanted to meet him. And so he did. He did, and they did talk, and that was the first time that she had really gotten in touch with him since she, at all.
As making her own decisions, and wanting to be in the presence of her father.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow, that's so important.
Well, she after that she met her half brother, that was I think probably 6 months older than she was.
Mm.
He was a busy little guy, and so we were in Austin. I was living in Austin, and she was in Little Rock, and she decided she was going to move to Austin with me. So I got her from the bus station, and we went to this restaurant, and we were sitting down and talking, and the waiter came over, and he said, I'm JT, and so forth and so on, and we got our meal and left, and she said, Mama, do you think that was JT Van Zant, my half brother, that was the waiter? And I said, I don't know. I said, well, you can call the restaurant and ask for JT Van Zant and see if that was him. And she did, and it was. And so without knowing it, Laura went back to the restaurant and flirted with him and didn't tell him who she was, and they started palling around, and they went to he and his friends and Laura had a lot of things that they did together without her knowing that was his half-sister. And when she went back to Little Rock, she wrote a note and left it with him, and for him to find at the restaurant, and told him that was his half-sister. So I didn't know any of this. So when I was out with a friend of mine, I ran into JT, and he wanted to know if it was true, and I said, yeah, you need to talk to your dad. And so that's how she met her half-brother.
Do you think that this boy JT was living with his father?
No, he was no, he never lived with his kids. That was one of his wives, and his wife had raised the boy.
I see. I see. That's so nice that they were able to meet. I mean, really,
Mhm.
it's a spiritual connection.
Mhm.
So then your life goes on into the Air Force, and your
Mhm.
life goes on and on. What was the most wildest, cra- craziest thing that happened to you in the Air Force?
Oh gosh. Well, there's a lot. There's a lot. I think probably the most unique thing, I had a great time with the Air Force. I traveled quite a bit. Every promotion brought me to a new country. But when I lived in Guam, that was the most interesting because I had never ever experienced a lifestyle the way that it is in Guam. They have super typhoons constantly in the typhoon season. When I lived there, we had 7 direct hit super typhoons. And what happens is that everything gets blown away, and anything that lands in your yard then is yours, and anything that left your yard is your neighbor's. And so it was a very fluid kind of lifestyle. The the there's a, a saying that only on Guam, and the other one is Hatha Day, which means a hello and goodbye, but it also means half a day, which means they only work for half a day, and then they take a big siesta the rest of the time, and then after the siesta, they have big uh, uh, festivals, and they find a wild boar, and they roast it, and have big outdoor
And how often
fiestas.
they did this every day?
Yeah, yeah. And most of my
Wow.
people that worked for me were Guamanian, because we had outdoor rec, and we had all of the different things, and they were the worker bees. And so I was invited to all of the fiestas, and it was a very interesting thing. A very there it was one of the interesting things is there's a tree in Guam called the Tatamoni tree, and they really believe in this Tatamoni tree that their ancestors live their essence in this tree. So it was against the law to hurt or cut down or do anything to a Tatamoni tree. It was sacred. And if you did anything, you had horrible luck, horrible luck. Things would happen to you that you couldn't understand. And so they would not build a house between a graveyard and a tatamoni tree, because at night the ancestors would go from the graveyard to the tatamoni tree, and they would live in the tatamoni tree in the nighttime, and then go back in the morning to their grave.
Wow.
So we had a tatamoni tree on the golf course, and we had to baby that baby so that it didn't die.
So there was there one tree that was bigger than all the other Tatamoni trees?
Well, not that I know of, but the other thing that happened on Guam was that we had all of these horrible typhoons, and the energy of Guam was very hostile, very violent, and there was a lot of domestic abuse, to the point that the government wanted to do something about it, and it's native, very native way of living and thinking, and so we got a grant to bring over a shaman from California, and she came over, and we had a big 3-day retreat with women that had been domestically abused by their husbands or by the family or whatever, and her name was Azori, and Azori was a big black lady, beautiful, wonderful, wonderful woman that was from Azori, Azori, let me think, an island, and she had her deity was the ocean, and it was she. So we had this retreat, and the first thing that she did was when the women came, she had a big bowl of water, and she put flowers in it, and she washed each woman's feet in the water and dried them with a towel. So
did she change the water each time she did it, or she just kept it? Oh,
yeah,
wow!
She did. It was a beautiful ceremony, and she had a big altar to her deity that was from the ocean, and the deity was called Oshun, and Oshun was it was kind of like benevolent voodoo, so to speak, and she channeled Oshun. The first thing that surprised me is when we went out to the tatamoni trees, and she had a cigar, and she lit her cigar, and she smoked the tatamoni tree, and she had a bottle of whiskey, and she drank a bit, and then she spewed it all over the tatamoni tree as a tribute and to welcome the entities on the island and to ask them that they needed to help her with the violence on the island to make it not so volatile. And so the first day she went around to each person, and she sat in front of them, put her hands together and looked into their eyes, each person, and she did this with me, and she would then relate the most violent thing in our life that had happened to us that affected us, and each person was so startled by it. And my experience when I was a little girl, and I couldn't remember the times tables. I was having a lot of trouble with the times tables, and my mother was very, very strict, and mother kept just drilling me on going over the times tables and telling me I was stupid and that I was like a goose and I couldn't remember things, and I was having tears running down my face that I was worthless and couldn't remember my times tables. And that woman started saying the times tables to me, so I knew she
was pretty real.
She was real. She was real. So as we went through the day and did the retreat, the women started out with chests that were fallen, and they would sit like this in their chair and look around and not talk to each other. By the end of Saturday, it started on Friday evening. On Saturday, they were talking, and they were coming alive and coming more confident as the day went on. By Sunday morning, when they came back, they were transformed. They had on bright clothes, they had flowers in their hair, and then Sunday night at the end,
with her, going through different rituals for days and days, like a workshop.
Yes. And then at the end, we all were invited to go to this private secret beach, and get undressed. We were naked, and we had to bring a pineapple with us. And so we all were, all of these women, and it was, it was a private beach. Nobody else was around. And she said, okay, now I want you to go out into the water and throw your pineapple out as far as you can go. And then if the waves bring back the pineapple and it touches you, then it's fertility. And so we all ran out in the water and threw our pineapples out, and all of the young women were trying to get the pineapple to touch us, and all of the old women like me were running away from the pineapple.
That is so cute. Well, what a phenomenal experience. Can you remember her name?
Yeah, Azuri.
Zuri?
Azuri.
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 And she's from where?
From Aruba.
Aruba.
Mm-hmm.
Azuri from Aruba.
Right.
That's so interesting. Sounds like the name of a film.
Well, the funny part about it is after that happened, there were I think maybe three or four of us that had been facilitating the workshop, and Azuri. We went to Bali together, and the people in Bali had never seen, I guess, a black woman before. And they thought she was Oprah, because they kept calling her Oprah.
Oh my God, how degrading. Well, I mean, that they would just not accept her as a different person.
Well, it was interesting.
Or maybe they thought every person from America that was a black woman was called Oprah.
Was called Oprah.
Maybe they thought Oprah was like a genre.
Well, name. I'll tell you what happened with that adventure. That was amazing to me. We got there, and we were all staying at the Hilton. It was very nice, and so the nighttime, Azuri and I went to the little bar that they had down there, and they had a jukebox, and she put some music on, and she said, "Dance with me," and I said, "Okay." And so we were the only two people in the bar, and we were dancing just abandonedly. And she said, "Okay, I'm going to." She said, "I'm going to invite Oshun to come visit you." And so she did, and I was channeling Oshun. And I was surprised because I had never felt that kind of thing before. It was like I was sitting in a corner and watching, and Oshun was just having a ball, and I drank a couple of liquors with Oshun. So that happened, and then the next day, we were going with our guide. We were going to go. We wanted to see a shrine, and on Bali they had a Hindu shrine, and so we went to this Hindu shrine, mm-hmm. and Azuri could not go into the entrance. She started throwing up. And she said, "Oshun is very jealous, and I cannot go to a Hindu shrine. I have to stay out here." And so she did not go in. So then after we finished doing that, I said, "Well, I'm not Hindu, I'm Buddhist. Aren't there any Buddhist places around here?" And he said, "There is a ruin of a Buddhist place." He said, "It's if you go down the mountain," he said, you'll see it. He said it's a bunch of caves and the rocks that used to be a temple. And so I walked down this path by myself, and I came upon this cave, and in the cave there were cutouts where people had made niches to meditate in, and there was one that was right at the entrance, and so I decided I was going to go in and meditate in this niche. So I sat down in the niche, and I'm meditating, and all of a sudden it started raining, and then as it and the jungle was behind me, and the monkeys were playing in the trees, and the orchids were all over the place, and the sun came out, and it looked like diamonds were falling from the sky because of the raindrops in the sunlight looked like diamonds, and it was the most beautiful meditation I've ever had.
Wow, that's so wonderful. It's so descriptive. I can't wait till you watch this interview and you're able to see what I see as far and hear what I hear without having to say it. You know, that's the beauty. And so lately I heard a rumor that you were elected the 103rd president of the Women's Department Club.
Yes, I am.
And that's quite a legacy. And without coming from Shreveport, the women are really opening their minds to newcomers.
That's very true, and
Isn't that
they
nice?
have a it started when
We've got about 10 more minutes.
Okay.
So
the club started when they had suffragettes, and so
Wow.
they were the beginning of suffragettes here in Shreveport, and they got the money together to build the building, and so the building has never been anything else but the Women's Department Club.
And what was your first moment to connect to this Women's Department Club in your hometown of Shreveport, Louisiana right now?
Well, I was asked to join after I had an art exhibit there. We had a gallery, an art gallery, and I showed my paintings and did a reception and met the ladies, and I was very impressed with the number of women that were very movers and shakers, if you want to say that. That the people were of my age, and they were into all of the different things, the culture of Shreveport, the Robinson Theater, the Little Theater, the Centenary College, the Symphony.
Everyone
The
had a
opera.
connection to something.
Right, yeah, things that I would have never experienced if I hadn't known these ladies, that opened my mind to those things.
How wonderful.
Mhm.
And I was speaking to a woman there the other day, and they said everyone loves Marilyn. She's so easy to get along with. But you have found it easy to get along with them.
I have, yeah, they
Isn't
are.
that wonderful?
Yeah, yeah, and they have such great memories and such great experiences that and I've learned a lot about tradition and kind of the elegance and tradition.
Yeah, just like having things beautiful around you, that's perfectly fine. That's how we decorate temples,
Mm-hmm.
to have beauty around us. And how long ago was that you embarked upon the department club?
I think it was about 3 years. 3
3
years ago,
years
just 3
ago.
years ago. So I'm a newbie.
And I just find it a great honor that they just completely embraced you and moved you into being the 103rd president.
And trust. That's the main thing, is that they trust me to give me that position, and to trust that I will work really hard, and also have the respect that the club has always had.
That is wonderful. Well, on a closing remark, what would you say your most interesting moment in life was?
When I met Trungpa Rinpoche, that I didn't want to become a Buddhist, and I was going to fight it every step of the way. But when I went to Shambhala Mountain in Colorado for my refuge ceremony, which means that I decided that I was going to be a card-carrying Buddhist and that he could cut a lock of my hair and keep it with him as my teacher. When I looked in his eyes, the all he absolutely gave me all of the knowledge, and he said that in his speech to us, that when he transmitted all of the knowledge that he had learned, and that we would experience it when it was needed, and that he transferred it to us.
That is so cool. And is he living?
No, he died. He died.
And you've experienced death with your family?
Yes, yes. My older sister, my mother and my dad, and my sisters, both sisters have lost their daughter and their granddaughter, both of them. So we lost 4 children.
4 children and a sister.
Mm-hmm.
And then the grandparents and parents have died with the natural course of life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so sorry for that loss. I'm so grateful, but you did lose your sister, so you don't have her in the physical world, but
Mm-hmm.
she's in the spiritual.
Oh yeah, because she visits. I always find in our family, they leave back money. They leave a nickel or a quarter, and if it's a quarter, then it's something they really want me to pay attention to. If it's a nickel, they're just saying hi.
Oh, that's great. Well,
I'll find them in different places that I didn't put them there.
This has been wonderful. If you ever have anything else to talk about, let me know and we can do interview number 2.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right.
We'll just get offline. I think this is a wonderful day, and is it May or June right now?
May.
It's still
The last
May.
day of May.
The last day of May. What day is that?
31st.
The 31st. Okay. Well, goodbye, May 31st, 2022.
Mm-hmm.
That's the day of our interview, and I was so grateful that Marilyn was available for this interview. A woman at the department club, sending light to her. Hope she feels better. I'll meet her next week. Thank you so much.